Well, that was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I just got done watching an advanced screening of an Amazon Prime movie that's coming out tomorrow. It's not that much advanced, but it's called I almost said my best friend's wedding, but no, that's not it. It's called My Best Friend's Exorcism. And apparently it was based on a book. I'd never heard of this book before. I don't know when the book was written, but the story takes place in the 80s. And it's about these two really close friends, like super tight, Lila's friends, love you like a sister. That's that sort of friendship. And something happens and one of them becomes possessed. Now I think the one who became possessed was Gretchen, and her best friend is Abby. Sorry, I meant to start the slideshow. Gretchen is there on the left and Abby is there on the right. So throughout the course of the story, those guys were a hoot, especially that guy on the far right. Throughout the course of the story, Abby figures out what's going on and she enlists the help of someone to try to deal with the situation. So in the beginning, I mean, I liked it. It was fun, but there wasn't anything super. It just kind of was like just your regular sort of teen movie with comedy and horror stuff. Because yeah, there's some horror stuff. It's also quite comedic in some parts. There was at least a time or two that I laughed out loud. This didn't happen until further on in the movie, towards the end when things are getting a lot more serious. And there's just some stuff that was said and things that happened that it tickled me. I don't know. I laughed out loud. While I wouldn't necessarily think this is like, oh, one of the best movies ever, it certainly was a pleasant surprise that I enjoyed it as much as I did. I figured I might like it, but I didn't think I would really like it. And it's not a 5-star or anything, but it's also, for me, not a 3.5-star. It was fun enough that I rated it 4 on Letterboxd. Now, maybe if I watch it again, I'd change my mind or whatever. This is just my first impressions. But something that I appreciated about it as well is that it's a very 80s feel, very 80s vibe. It's got the music, it's got the hair. It starts off with the Take On Me song from Aha. And then it closes out with Karma Chameleon by Culture Club. Boy George references going on because they both like Boy George. They got his posters in their room and things like that. And also the Trapper Keeper that one of them uses. Oh my gosh, do I remember those? I don't even know if they still make those, but I remember those. And then another thing, the girl here, Gretchen, there's a scene where she's wearing these barrettes in her hair and they have ribbons that have been braided into them or woven into them. I used to have barrettes like that, you guys, because you could make them. You could buy them, but you could also make them. And I think I made some, or maybe my mom made some for me, but one of them was red and white. And you just take the thin ribbon and you braid it through the barrette. It has to have like a hole in the middle of the barrette. I don't wear barrettes anymore, but you braid it through and you tie it off and then you let the ribbons hang down and you put it in your hair and it looks, I mean, it was kind of a thing back then. And so I saw her wearing that. I'm like, is that those barrettes from the 80s? Because I kind of forgot. I still have some from way back when, but I never wear them. So I should just go ahead and throw them away or give them to somebody. But who the heck wears them anymore? Well, actors in movies too that take place in the 80s. Oh, well. Anyway, that was something funny. So there's a lot of nostalgia sort of woven into the experience, especially if you lived in the 80s like I did. If you grew up in the 80s like I did. There are, like I said, this is a comedy, but there are also some kind of scary or disturbing moments of horror, especially body horror that happens, and some real like nasty behavior, not necessarily nasty as far as like physical nasty sort of whatever, but like really mean, snarky, awful behavior that happens between some of the characters. And it sort of takes this comedy and I love that. Isn't that cool? It's like the VHS. It's so cool. I like that artwork. It takes this comedy and it kind of grounds it a bit in, more serious stuff so that you don't completely discount this as just some silly comedy, which it is in a lot of ways, especially when those they're called the Lemon Brothers, and they're like these guys that are all into fitness, but they're also like these rah evangelical type Christian people up on the stage and doing all these things for the Christian schools and all this. And so it was kind of funny, over the top sort of humor sometimes, but I felt like it was balanced out pretty well with some of the serious horror stuff that was happening, the possession and things like that. And so it was just it was this odd mixture of those things, and it worked. For me, it worked. I mean, there was one of the parts that I laughed out loud during was when there was a pretty disturbing scene happening with regard to the exorcism, and it was funny. It struck me really funny, even though the situation wasn't supposed to be funny. But at the same time, it's not so humorous that it pulls you out completely from the situation. So I don't know. I mean, it worked for me. I thought this was pretty enjoyable. There was some cliche type stuff, like think someone has had a change and they walk into a room and they're doing this slow-mo walk and their hair is different and they're wearing things different and everybody notices them because their hair is different and the way they walk is different and they carry themselves differently, which it did really change her appearance quite a bit. I mean, it wasn't anything drastic that was done to her hair, but whatever they did, it did change the way she looked, and I guess the way she was carrying herself, so sometimes things like that, I mean, it does catch your attention when someone has such a drastic change to their appearance and also the way they carry themselves. And so, yeah, it's overdone in movies, definitely overdone. So that sort of thing is in here, but it's, stuff like that's not really enough to ruin the experience. So I think if you like horror comedy, if you like stuff about, supernatural things and demonic possession or whatever, maybe you wouldn't mind giving this a go. Bear in mind that it definitely takes place from the perspective of a teenagers, girls. It's a girl-centric movie, but it touches on serious sort of issues too, like body positivity, sexual orientation and things like that. Pretty evenly balanced, I felt like, as far as seriousness and comedy, but I kind of already touched on that. But something that I didn't want to forget to mention before I sign off. This isn't going to be uber long review because while I did enjoy it quite a bit, it's not something that's going to spark a really long-winded sort of discussion from me. But it was quite efficiently paced. It's only about an hour and 36 minutes. And of course, 4 to 6 minutes of that is the credits. So think about an hour and a half. That's it. And it didn't drag. It also didn't feel like it was super rushed in areas. I felt like the time was utilized very well. Reminded me of how well the movie Nobody did with the time that it had. I mean, it told this very clear story. It was efficient, not bloat. There was not bloat. It wasn't bloated, and yet you didn't feel robbed of time. Like if this had been maybe an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 10, because some movies are that short, I think I would have felt like it was on the short side, because you had this intro, you've got the friends and showing their life and their interactions with each other. And then you've got the stage is set for the conflict of the possession and the falling out of friends and the estrangement between them. And then you've got that third act where they're finally going to face up to the situation and try to deal with it because she wants to save her friend. It's her best friend. The tagline of the movie or the book, I can't remember, maybe both. It says, I even wrote it down, a heartwarming story of friendship and demonic possession. I found the audiobook. I'm going to listen to it. I don't know if I'm going to listen to it right away, but I do want to check it out and see if it's as entertaining as the movie was. But yeah, I guess I'll find out whenever I get around to it. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't have anything else. Oh, be sure to hang around through to, after the movie's done. And you know how they do those different type of things where they like where they are now sort of narratives that they show beside a picture of the particular character. Be sure to hang around for that because it's kind of funny. That's kind of funny. And then they play the Karma Chameleon song at the end when all that stuff is happening. So it's kind of I like that song. It's fun. It brings back memories. I'm not a big Culture Club fan, but that is a catchy song. And yeah, so that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Let me see you guys later. Bye.